Australia's elite protects the paedophiles. Martin North, John Adams, in the interest of the people. Hi, John, we're back again.
We're back again, Martin, and lo and behold, just like I anticipated, we have a new corruption cover-up by the Albanese government, Martin. So, taking us back about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we covered the secret pedophile tape from 1975, and a lot of people had no idea that the tape actually existed. The following episode, we said write to the minister because she has the power to tell the ABC to publish it. And Martin, in the last 48 hours, we've had two significant events on this story. The first off is that I have received a letter from the department that works for the Minister for Communication, Anika Wells. And in the last 24 hours, Senator Malcolm Roberts raised the issue during Senate estimates in the Australian Parliament. But Martin, the key story with this is that the ABC basically says that they won't allow the Australian people to hear it, and the minister won't intervene. And basically, the entire elite establishment wants this tape to be buried in the sands of time, and no one's allowed to hear it. And it's another cover up of this pedophile scandal that's been happening for a very long time. And Martin, before I hand it over to you, the reason why the speech by Senator Heffernan back in 2015 still lingers today in social media land is because people are deeply concerned that there is not enough effort to expose pedophilia and to deal with it, whether it's historical or contemporary. And back in the 70s, pedophilia was everywhere. It was among the elite, politicians and judges. It was right throughout New South Wales. Um, uh, and like I said in a previous episode, I have met one of the victims from the 1970s. And yet, even though we have this very ugly history, people just want to pretend it never happened, and they just want people to live in complete ignorance of the risks of child sex abuse. Because, Martin, the only way to defeat pedophilia is to be aware of the risk and to expose the evil and to deal with it head on. And that means not only dealing with it in the current environment, it also means that we have to deal with the historical issues that are at play. And there's a lot of stuff that happened in the 1970s that a lot of people at my age and younger have no idea about. And obviously, the government and the ABC want to keep the population in complete ignorance and not allow them to learn the true history of Australia.
Yeah, I think it's John. It's important from a couple of perspectives. Clearly, the specific issue is, as you say, concerning, and we want to cast the spotlight on that. But there is this broader issue too, that the way that the mechanics of government works is to actually just slow stuff down or not speak about it, or just hope it goes away. And this is this broader process corruption issue that we've been talking about in the last show in particular. And so from that perspective as well as the specifics around paedophilia, this is a really important conversation that we're having. And we're seeing more process corruption running today about the historic issue. So it just shows you that this thing continues.
Indeed. Martin, for the benefit of the audience, if you just want to maybe put up the letter that I received from the department, just to show that the letter actually does exist. The letter really underscores 3 points. The first point is, Martin, back in 2016, when Senator Betts asked the ABC about this issue, he asked whether the ABC was prepared to apologize over the recording, and the ABC said no. And then when Senator Betts raised the issue in 2018, the ABC said, we don't have a copy of the tape. We don't have a copy of the broadcast. We don't have a copy of the record in terms of the interview. And so They lied in 2018, and I don't believe it was an inadvertent mistake. Because and the reason why I say that, Martin, is that because they've shown no contrition in 50 years about what they did back in 1975, and they had the opportunity to apologize in 2016, and they didn't on that occasion. And for 50 years, the ABC has refused to apologize for what took place in terms of this in terms of this broadcast. So now, even though we caught them out in on this show, the ABC lying to Parliament, the ABC the ABC in responding to the minister's request for information, basically has written to the Parliament and said they have corrected the record. So you're allowed to, if you are among the elite establishment, you can lie to the public, and then when you get caught out, there are no consequences. There's no accountability, and all you have to do is send a letter and just say, "Sorry, we're just going to correct the record." Well, Martin, if you lied on a government form, or if you lied to Parliament or the courts, you'd be in a lot of hot water. And the same for me. But for the ABC, they're allowed to lie, and when they get exposed, they just say, "Hey, we're just going to correct the record," which this double standard between us, the citizens, and and those in the elite positions of society. Again, that's why we have enormous mistrust with our political institutions. So the first thing they said is, well, the ABC wrote to Parliament to correct the record, even though they lied about it. The second point is that the ABC said that they will not that they won't reproduce and they won't broadcast the recording because it doesn't meet its current editorial standards, which is technically true because in the current standards doesn't allow for the broadcasting of pedophilia. But it's a convenient excuse, in my view, that the ABC can basically say, "Hey, we're going to deny Australian history to the population, and we're just going to use the cover of our current standards as to why people are not allowed to hear the recording." So that's excuse number two. And then the third issue is that the minister basically has said via her department that she respects ABC editorial independence and she's not going to intervene. So she said that this is a decision for the ABC. So the ABC says no one is allowed to hear it. Initially, they tried to say it doesn't exist. Somehow, I was able to get a copy, and now the minister's saying, "Well, it's not in the national interest for the public to hear it, and I'm not going to do anything about it." So that's the essence of the letter, which is cover up, complete whitewash, and basically treating us like mugs again, Martin. And it's just it's completely frustrating. Sometimes I think to myself, why are we working and paying taxes when our own government and these public servants treat us like absolute fools?
Yeah, good question. And there isn't a really good answer to it other than they can get away with it, so they tend to. But the truth of the matter is that this is a classic example of them, just hiding, not wanting to actually be accountable. And I do think it is in the public interest for transparency for this to actually come out, and for the content of that program. Although historically, of course, different context from today, that program was a very important insight into something much broader than just the specifics of the program, which it goes to culture, it goes to accountability, and it goes to authority, and how authority so often seems to be able to flex their muscles and just to say, "Nothing to see here, move on," when in fact there is. And I think ordinary Australians should be angry about this, because this is a really, really important issue. And it's an important issue because, as I say, it's a case study of what happens again and again and again, that effectively we get half-truths, we get partial truths, we get filtered truths, when in fact there's a whole bunch of stuff that is actually deliberately hidden and obfuscated in a way that suits those people in positions of power, rather than possibly they would feel a little inconvenienced if this information came out. But the truth is that ordinary people never see it, and they can get away with murder as a result, metaphorically at least.
Yes. Now, Martin, as we bring the show to a close, so the question then becomes: is so what does this actually mean, and in terms of this, in terms of the events of this week, and where do we go moving forward? So the first thing, Martin, is that just like how the BBC in the UK attempted to hide the evil past of Jimmy Savile and all the cover-ups that happened at the BBC over a multi-decade period, we have the same form of concealment and cover-up by our current ABC. Now, the question you have to ask yourself, Martin, is why? So we know that the ABC have been aggressive in exposing some forms of pedophilia, whether it is particularly around sort of the Catholic Church and some politicians. But on this occasion, they want this whole situation to go away. One important critical thing, Martin, is that um, you have what I call right-wing pedophilia and left-wing pedophilia. So pedophiles happen right across the political spectrum, but there are certain pedophiles that happen in groups that are more associated with the centre-left, whether it's conservative politician or religious groups, etc. And when that happens, the ABC has historically been super aggressive to expose that form of pedophilia and to bring it to the public's attention. And of course, it should, because any form of pedophilia is bad. But then there's another form of pedophilia, and this was rampant in the 1970s, which was rampant among left-wing groups, people associated with centre-left politicians, political groups, but also in terms of in terms of left-wing social justice causes who also embraced pedophilia. And there was a number of groups in the 1970s on the centre-left who were pushing pedophilia as a accepted practice, and it's those types of groups, and some of those groups have been associated with the ABC, and some of these people have worked at the ABC, and we've said that the former host Richard Neville, who was a left-wing guy, he was a pedophile and he worked at the ABC. So anytime there is pedophilia on the center left of the political spectrum, the ABC attempts to downplay it or conceal it or won't even report about it. But if it's right-wing pedophilia in the Catholic Church, in the coalition, a far-right politician, potentially big business, etc., the ABC is very eager to report about that. So people need to understand that while you and I consider pedophilia to be a moral evil, and no matter where it happens, we're prepared to call it out, at the ABC, there's a form of pedophilia which are acceptable because it's their side of the political spectrum. But if it's on the other side, then that is no good. And that's the real double standard that Gerald Henderson from the Sydney Institute was calling out a decade ago in some of his publications. And what we've seen this week is another demonstration that if it was the Catholic Church, the ABC would be all over it. And Martin, can I just say this? In the last 24 hours, there was Senator Price in the Parliament. She was actually attacking the ABC when she was throwing some questions around about why, when it comes to sexual assault or even rape and pedophilia of young Indigenous girls in the Northern Territory, why does the ABC not report about that? And yet the ABC is prepared to report about other instances of Indigenous violence, etc. And obviously, again, because the ABC is heavily committed to promoting Indigenous in terms of Indigenous views, Indigenous values, etc. Anything that would undermine the narrative about Indigenous Australia, including some of the problems in Indigenous Australia, like pedophilia in the Northern Territory, the ABC is not prepared to report about that. And even though, and Senator Price called that out, even though she's an Indigenous woman herself. So that's the broad context. Now, Martin, a number of people said, well, I have the tape. People want to hear the recording. The ABC says they won't play it. The Minister for Communications says that she won't force the ABC to play it. So where do we go from here? Martin, all I can say to the audience is that the story is not over. We have a big surprise coming soon, hopefully. And when that surprise comes, people will be able to have access to the tape. But Martin and I have to go through a couple of little hoops first before we get there. But hopefully we have some big news on the horizon in the coming week.
Yeah, well, watch out for that, folks. Keep subscribed to IOTP and watch our next shows. because there is more important stuff coming. And I will just say in closing, of course, the paedophile issue is not something which is dead and dusted, right? There is still an undercurrent, even in the current environment. We've had a number of people contact us in recent times saying this is not a dead issue, it's still a live issue. So this is actually something which is really, really important for the future of Australia, as well as being a historical issue. And I think, again, that's another reason why this is such an important subject. As always, John, well done. Very important discussion here today. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one as well. And this is Martin North, John Adams, in the interest of people. We'll see you next time.